Good morning. Welcome to the Scotch Talks podcast. I'm your host, Scotch. Thank you for listening and coming back. If you've listened to previous episodes, I appreciate it. Today we have Skyler Greene on. He's an excellent lifestyle, nature, landscape photographer. He does it all. Really just quality work and a really awesome mind. So I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. Really quick, so no one told me how hard making a podcast would be, and it's really difficult. So with that being said, this is a growing experience for myself, learning how I speak to other people, how I ask questions, and also how I listen to people. But again, this is happening for me and not to me. And so with myself being really crazily self-analytical during this process, I'm learning so much about myself through these people that I've interviewed and through listening to it back. So I'm grateful for that. It scares the shit out of me, but I'm super grateful. So before we get into Skyler's podcast, I want to start showcasing on this show spoken word as well, whether that be poems, songs, anything. So if you have a song, if you write poetry, if you have any spoken word, writings that you want to showcase, record them, send them in. If you're in the Bay Area or LA, just let's meet up and converse and record what you have to say. And I'll feature it on the show before the actual podcast. So this is from my friend Ross Jameson. I heard him say this the other day, and it's about an online dating app. I was thinking to myself, that has to be featured somewhere. So I do want to give a voice to those people who may not have the platform to show their work on. So let's show it. Let's get into it. So this is Ross Jameson.
Hi, my name's Ross Jameson. This is a piece that I wrote about dating profiles. I'm calling it currently preset filters, and it's in the form of a dating profile. So I'll just kick it off here. Ross, 49, San Francisco, California, straight, single, 5'9", fit, white, speaks English, Spanish, Korean, attended post-grad, omnivore, has kids, Libra. Self-summary. No dyes, enhancers, or stabilizers. Sustainably raised, reasonably lean, and free-ranging. Periodically dry-aged. Salty. What I'm doing with my life. I'm trying to remember what I'm doing here and what I'm looking for. Despite this amazing new technology and the nearly infinite connections it provides, you continue to elude me. I know that you are out there somewhere. I'm feeding all my data into the algorithm. I'm posting well-lit photos shot from interesting angles. I'm crossing my fingers and toes. I'm reaching out, but I'm also filtering, just like you. The cracks in the leaky pipe lead to the tiniest trickle of moments together to determine attraction. After the photos and the filters for height, location, education, children, perhaps we text anonymously through the app. Either of us free to vanish at any moment. No explanation needed. To ask would be needy, even creepy, right? The chit-chat questions we ask each other are simple, but filled with subtext. The following seem to be the key items we hope to screen for. Are you just looking for fun? Are you at least mostly sane? Are you likely to be as good-looking or better-looking than my last partner when we eventually meet? Are you gainfully employed, financially secure? Do you have children still living at home with you? Are you in a relationship, attached, married, poly? Are you just looking for fun? Are you ready to settle down? Are you nearby? Are you able to come to where I am, when convenient for me? Are you just looking for fun? I try to be truthful, even when I know that very likely it means that at some point you could disappear. Sometimes it feels like the number of these little cuts is getting close to 1,000. Still, it's part of the sifting process. If I'm truthful, and if that means you move on, then maybe I'm just getting closer to the person that will be a more complete match. Or will I? Textbooks say the latest social phenomenon is that with infinite choice, we all continue to think there is some better match, some greener blade of grass just a few swipes away. As a result, we continue to search but never choose. Can you relate? Did we already pass each other up? Sometimes I fade into the gray where I don't really know anymore what the right or truthful answer is. Depending on the day of the week, the time of day, your sanity, financial security, that could be overshadowed by what you appear to be looking for, what you look like. What could have happened if I matched with you on Monday instead of 10 p.m. Friday night? Ms. Right, Ms. Right now, missed right then. What I'm actually looking for. Well, like everyone, I want a connection. Maybe we meet for coffee and the conversation covers harrowing travel, transcendent music, simple delicious cooking, kooky family, emergent pet care, all in a nice, graceful, flowing swirl. It goes so well that we move to the place next door for Thai or Mexican. Yes, a connection. Some call it intimacy. That word makes me shiver. I'm a sincere person capable of real depth of feeling and truthful communication, but somehow intimacy still sounds like a word for grown-ups. Grown-ups or life coaches with big jewelry and exotic smoothies. The connection that I'm looking for is the ease and comfort when we're alone and so excited to be in each other's arms. You hold that excitement gently in the palm of your hand. It feels like you're holding me in the palm of your hand. I'm in the palm of your hand, and there's no other place I'd rather be. And when our eyes meet, we see right into each other, and your expression, your warm smile says, I've got you right here. I'm holding on. I see exactly who you are. Don't worry, I won't let go. Perhaps too much for the first date? The most private thing I'm willing to admit. On some level, that is what I'm actually looking for, the never-ending honeymoon, the long-lasting, warm, fuzzy connection. Consciously, I know that this is not reality. I was married for 18 years. Passion can fade, and it can easily take one another for granted. I'm aware that much of our time together could include inside jokes, button pushing, warm hugs, carefully edited requests, and pining. I just want the glue to be something which indicates the fire is still there. I know. I want to have my cake and eat it. And I want to eat your cake too. You should message me if you have some living under your belt and this is not your first rodeo. If you're a good communicator with your own life, your own career, your own friends. If you're good with using the phone early on rather than messaging endlessly. If you see beyond the algorithms and checkboxes and can take a moment for qualitative evaluation of the individual. If you're ready to give a nice guy the same level of care and attention as the bad boy or girl who's gone. If you're ready for the grass to be green where you are right now, then be in touch. Operators are standing by.
A special thank you to Ross Jameson. And now here's Skyler Greene. Thank you.
Hello. Here we are in my room. Oakland, California.
A little louder.
Oakland, California, January 6, 2019.
Oh shit, it's January 6th.
Yeah, that's what my watch says.
Okay. Hello. Woohoo. Cheap products on Amazon. Good afternoon. Welcome to Scotch Talks podcast. Today, our guest is Skyler Greene.
Hello.
Good morning. So Skyler and I know each other from photographing at Insomniac events together, and his work is just phenomenal. So I really wanted to feature him on this podcast, and I'm glad that you were so willing to do so, and I thank you.
No problem.
And I feel like you have a lot to share about art, and so let's get into it. Let's first start off by, how did you get started in photography? And also, you have like kind of not a usual upbringing. Didn't you go to school in nature or something like that as well?
Yeah, I think, I did a program my junior year.
Okay.
That was called TEAM in Marin County, and it was a wilderness exploration and outdoor education program for high school juniors in the district that I went to high school in. So that was 1 year, and then that was kind of like a basis for a lot of my appreciation with nature and a lot of my nature learning and stuff. Yeah. So I guess I went to high school in nature.
Nice. So has that affected you in your work?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Those were pretty formative years, and I had some really great instructors, and I just happened to have an instructor who was also a photographer. So the program was only 24 kids for a whole year, which meant you bonded pretty closely with everybody in the program, and there's only 2 instructors. So obviously you become pretty close with them. And one of them had studied with Ansel Adams and had worked at, I believe it was Sunset Magazine for a number of years and did a lot of photography in the film days, and then transitioned to becoming a teacher, an instructor, an educator. And later on went to be the superintendent of the school district. His name is Chuck Ford. He's awesome. So, obviously he would have his camera out every time we were in nature, and, 16-year-old me was asking a lot of questions, first getting into photography and being in a pretty beautiful landscape or pretty beautiful or stunning area. It was very, it was a really conducive environment to be able to ask questions and have somebody give you a lot of really good advice from his background.
Yeah. At what age did you start
photography?
Yeah.
I started photography my sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
So what does that make you, like
15, 16? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was 15. Oh, you want me to keep?
I thought you were taking a sip and gonna start talking again. And like, how has your work progressed since then? And I know that that's a large question, but like, what did you shoot before? Because before I shot, starting off my yearbook, and then I would go to downtown LA and just shoot like silhouettes of my friends. And my work has definitely changed since then. So like, where'd you start off, and how did you get into what you're doing now?
Okay. Yeah, good question. I guess that's a really long-winded question, so let me see if I can try to make this digestible. But I got into film photography in high school, taking a course. My instructor was fine. It wasn't Chuck Ford, it was a different instructor, and she was very hands-off, which then I was very frustrated about, because I became addicted to photography very quickly, and I wanted to consume knowledge and learn and do. And she was very much on I'm just going to let you do you and explore mentality, as opposed to I'm going to instruct you, which at the time I was pretty frustrated about, but ultimately I think it was probably really healthy. But I took it from there and just really enjoyed the process shooting film. I remember having like a little notebook, and I'd like write down all my exposure values and on each frame of the rolls, like what I was taking pictures of, so that I could go back later and say, okay, that photo is, 400 ISO film, and I shot it at 5.6 on this lens and this shutter speed, and it was of this. And then I'd do it a couple different ways, and I'd like look and see how it came out. But I remember being really fascinated with macro photography when I was really young and starting out, and like taking pictures of bees and flowers, and like getting like really close and intimate with nature.
Which haven't you started doing that again? Yeah. I've seen a couple of recent photos of like bees and flowers.
I did. This past spring, I kind of revisited a motif that I explored when I was younger, which was like the bee in the flower, and like this idea of like pollination and animalia crossing with like flora, and just like this interaction of nature. Bees are super symbolic, and they come up a lot in my life. And so I think at that point, this past spring, I was kind of revisiting a lot of styles or a lot of themes that I had begun to delve into when I first started, that I felt comfortable revisiting now that I was kind of going through transitional period. So that's kind of how I started. I deeply rooted in nature and being in nature. Growing up in Marin County, obviously you're surrounded by a lot of lush, amazing nature and a lot of beautiful landscapes.
Yeah.
And then I spent a lot of my college years photographing music. I got into electronic music.
Did you want to, or was it, there's a concert here, bring your camera, and then you just kind of fell into it?
I wanted to. I sought it out. I was like, oh, there's this thing happening and I really want to shoot it. I really want to be the photographer. And then I just sought it out. And I started doing that when I was like 16 and 17. Like right before I graduated high school, I was like starting to explore concerts and festivals. And I started, one of my first music gigs ever was for Live 105, which was the alternative rock station in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
It actually existed only up until like maybe a year ago. And now it's a different radio station. But there was a media and promotions director who worked at the radio station. And I listened to that station so much, like I was familiar with all the DJs and like the operation and how that works. And I knew their whole festival schedule. And I was like I said, maybe 16 years old, 17 years old. And I reached out and I was like, hey, I see that you guys are putting on this festival. I think it was called BFD.
Oh, yeah. That's still happening.
Is it still happening?
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder.
I think so, right?
Well, I don't know, because the radio station's not around anymore. So I'm not sure who would be putting it on. If
it might have transferred to some other radio station, but it's a big fucking deal in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were talking about it this past year.
Cool.
And I was like, oh, BFD, okay. I hear about that on the radio too.
Oh, well, I hope it's still live.
Yeah, I think
that was
so.
Kind of like my inception to concert and festival photography.
Yeah.
Which is an avenue that led me down a totally different path than shooting nature, right? Because, going from experimenting like really early on, getting really close with macro photography in the ground, and then going and exploring nature in this team program, which was a lot of wilderness exploration, backpacking trips and day hikes and things all around California, multi-day trips, overnight trips, and then into concerts and festivals. And then I was always frustrated by like the 3-song rule, you only got 3 songs in the pit. Which I always thought was kind of bullshit, because if you're minding your P's and Q's, like, what does it matter?
It doesn't.
It's just, I think it's the stipulation that the band members enacted because there's a couple photographers that fucked it up for everyone else.
Yeah.
But I gravitated towards the subsonic tent, which was Aaron Axelson's production as a part of the festival, and it was the electronic tent. And there, they didn't give a shit how many songs he photographed. Like, you could be in the pit on stage, like the whole set, if you wanted to. Nobody's going to bother you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, this is tight. I actually experiment and get into it. And I remember photographing like Moby and Mastercraft and Steve Aoki and like,
what? Just in that tent? They had that? Oh my God.
In this tent. This is like 2006.
Wow. Yeah. That's 13 years ago, by the way.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's 2019 now.
That's wild.
Somebody said 2010 today, and I was like, oh, that was a couple of years ago. No, that was almost 10 years ago.
Yep.
Wow.
Time elapses.
Anyway, so you shot in this tent.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I got hooked on electronic music. And then from there, started shooting at different venues around the city. And this is, the last year that I was in high school. So living in Marin, I'd commute to the city and go shoot shows.
Oh, wow.
Like Ruby Sky and Vessel and Slide and 1015 and all these other odd end clubs. Oh, the Rickshaw Stop. I remember shooting Bart Beemore at the Rickshaw Stop. It was like,
I don't know who that is, but
Bart Beemore is like Beemore house music, but he's this Dutch kid. He was like big in the blog house scene.
Okay.
Back in the late 2000s. And then I went to college and in Merced, which is 2 hours away from the Bay, and did a lot of commuting up to the Bay to still shoot shows. I started working for Dancing Astronaut, which is an electronic music blog. It's still around.
How'd you get in with them?
That's a funny story. The founding members of Dancing Astronaut came from 2 groups out of Stanford.
What?
One that was tennis players and the other that were from a Greek fraternity. And I happened to be in the same Greek fraternity.
How weird.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But that makes sense.
Yeah. And then they started developing like a syndicate over on the East Coast. And then we'd all like meet up in Miami for Miami Music Week. Like I remember doing that in 2009 and all of this. But anyway, that was just kind of like this path that led me down electronic music. And that was a tunnel. And I kind of stopped shooting in nature actually for a long time. And it was only until I moved back to LA, back to California. I was living in Europe for about 3 years when I was in college. And then I was exploring, music over there as well. And like trying to hit up, different promotion companies and artists and venues and stuff that were in and around Europe. And that was a pretty crazy point in life. A lot of travel, a lot of just like going out and partying really hard. And it was fun. It was like my early 20s.
Nice.
And then, then when I moved back to LA 5 years ago, back to California, I started rekindling a love for nature and exploring Joshua Tree. And then that's when I started Candy Mountain Collective, which is my art collective, my company that produces stories in the form of photo and video for brands in the outdoor industry.
Yeah.
So exploring a lot of national parks at that point and state parks, also doing festival stuff. But at this point, the interest in festivals and music is beginning to wane because for me, it wasn't as sustainable or fulfilling as shooting in nature, shooting on the canvas of nature.
So can I get into that really quick?
Sure.
You're an all around excellent photographer, but as you're kind of leaving nature to pursue something, my opinion, nightlife and EDM festivals or whatever is total opposite of nature.
Totally.
If anything, I don't know if I want to say this, but it's kind of destructive in certain ways. I'll probably edit that out, but did you have this feeling inside that what you are doing isn't right, or what you were doing while you were in electronic music festivals, you wanted to be in nature photographing something else?
I think that I definitely always had like a heartstring attached to nature, but I was chasing the dragon, man. Like it was just it was exciting and it was shiny,
Very, very shiny.
It was really shiny. And, early 20s and being granted, access to locations around the world and being able to work with artists that are at the top of their game and being able to be a part of that intimate back end experience where like you're there almost as a part of the production and like you're integrated with these artists or you're touring with these artists and all these like close connections. Like it was amazing. And I always love music. And so it was really wonderful to be on that side of music.
Right.
I think it took me a little while then to start the relearning process of being back in nature and then learning more about sustainability and environmental stewardship and what it means to be in nature. It was only then did I really realize that music, I shouldn't say music, but I should say like the club scene or like the festival scene has a how do I tactfully say this? Like, it's not necessarily the most sustainable for the environment. There are people who are doing really wonderful things within the festival space. I worked with this amazing group in Buffalo earlier this summer who they just go around and they consult festivals on how they can integrate more sustainable practices.
Oh, wow.
How they can implement greenware to all the vendors, the food vendors, how they can separate bins for recycling and trash and compost and things like that. And then they run those services within the festival for the festival. Right. And in a way helping steward festival culture toward a more sustainable framework, which I think is awesome. But
that's amazing. What are they called really quick? Do you know?
Gosh. Can I give you that name later?
Yeah.
I'm so bad with names, and I should
totally
have been prepared. But I think the main point that I guess I'm trying to get to is like being in nature, yes, is very different. There is an overlapping point in which music happens in nature, and I think that's really beautiful. I found that with transformational festival culture, things like Burning Man or Lucidity Festival or Serenity or Lightning in a Bottle or Desert Hearts, even to some extent. And that connection with nature, I think, was really important for me. And I was relearning that when I moved back to California. And so I think I just fell more towards the side of the environment and nature. And I was less allured by the flashing lights at like big EDM festivals, which I think are kind of pornographic in a way. It's just like, you know what I mean by that?
Well
it's
said.
just like everything you want to see exaggerated.
Yeah.
And just like pushed, just squeezed out. Just like the fattest drops and like the craziest light shows and the most ridiculous stage design. And like everybody's just surging with energy. It's just like very teeming with energy, and it's just very like it's palpable, but it's also in a way not real.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that once I started to connect more with nature, I began to realize the fact that this isn't real. And I think it's really important for people who are going through the transformational festival culture scene to experience this, because I think that ultimately if people can like come out a better person, then the festival has done its job. And I hope that more festivals are doing their job to spark creativity and imagination and curiosity and love in a lot of people, so that they can be better people. Because for a lot of folks, this is an escape, and escapism is kind of dangerous, right? Because if you're just going to these festivals to escape reality and not working on yourself or not evolving, then you're probably doing more harm than good.
Right. That's exactly, well, I mean, when I started out, I was 18. I started going to music festivals. My first music festival, I think I turned 18 the week before. And I remember I was just listening to the craziest music, dropping like the craziest drops. And just not the most decent person. I was chasing that high of whatever and not hanging around the greatest people doing the greatest things. And when I started photographing, you have to go to these things sober. You have to maintain a level of professional attitude. And where am I going with this? I saw a different perspective on it, and I'm glad that I got that. And now when I hear about my friends going to music festivals or get invited, it's kind of off-putting, because like you put it like perfectly earlier, like pornographic. It's almost like that. And I'm not looking to get swept under that right now at this point in my life. And that's not to say that they don't promote amazing things, and they do. Like these new transformational festivals that are coming out, or Burning Man, which has been a staple for I don't know how many years, more focused on personal evolution.
Totally.
And just being a better person, which I love.
Yes.
And I'll stand by that. But a lot of these things, I just don't see how sustainable it can be. People will grow out of them. And that's a discussion for another day. But
yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think it's a transitional, like they call them transformational festivals, right? And festival culture in general, I think is transitional. And I think it's important to learn from them and to grow, and then not necessarily move on, but evolve. Like I see a lot of folks similar to myself that experience them from the ground, like in the crowd, aspired to be a part of that, identified a niche where they thought that they could contribute, gun for that niche, get to that niche, add their value and like add their thoughts and put their energy into this community, and then, do other things like take that learning, take that knowledge, either develop something of your own or continue to steward the experience for other people in some kind of like managerial position or some kind of like decision-making position or creative position, or, decide, okay, I've learned all I need to learn from this. It's time to move on and close the door.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get more into nature. Let me just ask you this about your own work.
Sure.
Do you, because you're kind of lifestyle documentary, how would you describe your work?
Wow. Okay. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I haven't, like, I still feel like I'm finding a focus, right? So it's hard for me to define the work that I do, but the work that I want to do, I think, is nature-based. Mm-hmm. It's based in symbols. It's based in totems. It's based in flora and animalia. It's based in celestial entities. It's based in like energetic or perceptual projections, right? It's cerebral. Yeah, that's I guess how I would describe it. Is if you wanted to put it into a category, I'd say that I'm probably like the stuff that I want to be doing is more fine art.
Right.
But even then, it's not really fine art.
I mean, when I think of fine art, I think of like old paintings of like an apple on a table. Can you go more into like what fine art means to you?
Like fine art photography?
Yeah.
Fine art photography is something, yes, I think it's hangable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, any photograph can really be hangable. Like you can have a really great editorial photograph that's hangable and adorable. But for me, it's like there's message and there's depth. I think a lot of landscape photography could be considered fine art photography. I think a lot of portraiture could also be considered fine art photography. Those are two things that I really am into learning more about and exploring in my own regard. For me, what separates fine art photography is like the ability to tell a message or convey a message or tell a story through symbols and composition and lighting and all the other aspects that photographers use, just the same as like a Rembrandt or a Van Gogh or, a Gauguin or something like that. There's a trade show that I went to when I was like 15 years old in Las Vegas, and there was a master lighting dude, right? It was a photography convention, and there's like this dude that was showing people how to use studio lights, and he was using continuous lighting.
Okay.
And I was probably the youngest person there by about 20 years. And, or so it felt. And, I was talking to him. I was asking him like about this. I was very curious. I'd never really seen studio lights. I've just seen photographs taken with studio lights. I've never seen them, but he told me he imparted some knowledge. He said, if you want to learn about lighting, don't study other photographers, study painters.
I've heard that once or twice before.
Yeah, because these painters like Rembrandt or Van Gogh or, all these Renaissance era classical painters, like they were masters of light. And even today we have a form of studio lighting called Rembrandt lighting, right? Because it's modeled after how Rembrandt would paint portraits of people, skylight off to the side, creating the triangle on the cheek, like this style of lighting. And he was a master at that. So I always think about that every time I walk around museums, because I look at the way that people would portray humans or animals or still life, and they had to be so good at painting light. Right. They had to understand it because it took so much longer.
Right.
We take that for granted sometimes as photographers because we can just walk and snap. But I think the master, like the inner master in us as photographers, comes out when we evaluate a scene over not just the time period of one day and not just the time period of 1 month, but the time period of a whole year.
Oh, wow.
And like determining, is this location best to be shot at sunrise or sunset? Yes. And is this area or scene best shot in March or December or January? You know, like figuring that out. And I'm certainly not there yet.
See, that's funny. I never really gave that thought. Me, with how I usually work, I just go somewhere and no planning, no nothing, and just see what I can get out of it. And that's how I work, and I like how I work.
Totally.
And maybe I need to put more research into what I'm doing, but right now that's what I do. And I've always done that, and it's always worked out. But that's just my flow. Do you do a lot of research before you go out and shoot?
Recently, yeah. But I definitely still operate like you're describing, just kind of like showing up to a place and just seeing where that environment and the people that I'm with and like the other factors that are involved, like where that takes me.
Right.
But I think it's good to try to have at least like a framework. Like I know that, say if I go to Mono Lake, like I want to be there at sunset. So I don't necessarily know exactly where I'm going to go, but I'm just going to set that framework. Be like, okay, I know that I really want to shoot this place at sunset. Mm-hmm. And we'll go on this hike, which I think will lead us to this part of the lake. I don't know what's there. And then I'll just show up and see what happens. I don't know what I'm going to take pictures of, but I kind of have like a general framework of set and setting.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and this may be an easy question or a difficult question or whatever question, but when you pick up a camera and obviously have the mindset to go out and shoot, do you have a particular vision in mind? So let's say you're doing a music festival. What are you trying to capture within the frame? Like what stands out to you?
That is definitely more of like either you're cued into some type of production that's going to happen and you know where to go and be, like say fireworks, or for me, more the magic happens when you're photographing an artist. You don't know what that artist is going to do unless you're really familiar with their stage performance and you've traveled with them. So you kind of have to flow with the artist in such a way. Like I find myself sometimes artistically dancing with an artist performing to try to like figure out where they're going to give me some emotion or where they're going to give me some type of action or like where they're going to be placed in the right light. Like sometimes I'll dance with an artist just like in their shadow, knowing that I'm going to get a nice halo of light behind them, like a ring light. Or, you know, sometimes I'll stand where I know like as soon as they walk into this little area on the stage that it's going to line up with part of the staging or part of the crowd or, you know, some type of compositional element. But I guess like I kind of show up and am just open to what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of music because it is very expressive and open and usually not super choreographed. So it's kind of like a flow state that you have to hit, which is hard to do with 3 songs, right? Yeah. Which is why I like shooting electronic music and, you know, or if you have, you know, particular access, sometimes 3 songs doesn't matter, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like being able to kind of like get into this rhythm with whoever is performing and just identifying who they are, what they're doing, and their soul, and just like figuring out a way to like, maybe that'll be captured somehow in this composition of this image.
Now, has that flow state always been a part of like who you are and like tapping into that with other people, or was that a muscle that needed to be built? Or something that was there and needed to be tapped into?
You mean like was this something that I had innately, or is it something that I learned?
Yeah. Is that kind of flowy dance? Like, have you just done that since you started, or?
I don't know. I guess it's hard to say. Like, you know what I mean by dance though. I'm not like shaking my ass in the pit. I'm like hunting almost.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a dance that you play with the performer in the pit, like, cause you can't just stay in one spot the whole time, or you could, but it's boring. And is that a muscle that I've always had? I don't know. I think that, like early on, the things that interest me about shooting live music are still things that interest me today. And it's lighting and its expression and its emotion. And it's like the perfect photo is when you look at it and you can almost hear the music again. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And your work does a really great job of portraying that.
Well, I thank you.
I mean, I love your work. And
Thanks.
Yeah, you just do a really great job of like capturing the actual energy. Like, it's very raw and organic, but well composed and also sharp. And you just do a really great job of that.
Appreciate it, brother.
Congrats.
Appreciate it. I really enjoy your work as well, man.
Thanks.
I like that you don't care about experimenting when you're out there.
True.
Yeah. And you'll bring with you like all kinds of weird little gadgets to supplement that experimentation.
Yeah.
I think it's really healthy.
Thanks. One thing that I was talking about the other day was somebody was permission within artwork, photography, film, whatever it may be. And a lot of times we get in our habits and shoot the same things or do whatever. And some client or some friend will give you permission to, let's put it this way. They'll ask you to shoot something weird or off, or let's say you shoot something weird or off and they'll say that they like it and basically give you verbal validation to keep shooting that experimental type of thing. Man, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Are you trying to say like, how does external validation influence the creative process?
Yes. And do you seek external validation to continue on with, let's say, a certain type of photo that you're taking, or does that make sense?
I get you. Yeah. I think there is a feedback loop. There is a feedback loop that exists between photographer, finished photograph, and then the way it's perceived, right? You know, like you want to have something that's meaningful. And for me, there's a certain catharsis that exists taking a picture just for me, right? And those will always be photographs that are sacred to me, but maybe not to someone else, or maybe they won't be as well received as something that's more generally applicable, say. I'm definitely aware that external validation has an influence on my work. Like when I was getting really into Instagram and in like 2016, I would see what was doing well, and then I would continue to shoot more in that style.
Yeah.
But the more that I wane myself from social media, which I have my own qualms about, the more that I do not seek external validation to pursue what I want to pursue.
Right.
Then there's a whole like commercial aspect of photography, which is more or less predicated by the client. And therefore you kind of have to work within that feedback loop. But as far as like the photography that I want to do, I don't want to necessarily make art for someone else. Like I want to make art for art's sake. And I want to express myself in that way. Ultimately, I would love to have a gallery show, which I guess would mean that I would also need to have some kind of external validation from, say, a curator or clientele that would appreciate it. But I feel like it's all in the way that you tell the story. And that's a story that I'm currently beginning to script.
Yeah. You'll get there for sure. There's no doubt.
Hope so. I want to do it something before I turn 30. I want to do a solo exhibition before I turn 30. That's one of my intentions this year.
Does turning 30 scare you?
No.
Are you 29 right now?
No, I'm 28.
Okay.
Yeah, 28 and a half.
Damn.
So I got a year and a half.
Yeah. Woo. Happy almost birthday. Happy almost 30th birthday.
Year and a half early.
Yeah. Never too early though. So like when you were starting out, what was some of the worst career advice you were given?
Some of the worst career advice that I was given?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I kind of just like either followed it, learned the hard way and never did it again, or forgot about it because I disregarded it immediately. But I try not to hang on to those types of things. So yeah. I'm not sure I can tell you something that I felt like was really bad advice that I followed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about some of the best though?
I mean, it's simple, really. You just shoot what you see, right? And at some point you kind of have the camera then is an extension of your mind. And I think that for me was pretty simple. A photographer told me when I was really young, just shoot what you see. He was, somebody who I had minimal contact with, and, somebody I walked up to and was like, oh, I want to start taking pictures too, naive 16-year-old. That's just what he said, but it resonated with me. I was like, shoot what you see. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then once you kind of begin to connect the camera or integrate it more with your thoughts and your mind, and you become more capable with it, it literally is just an extension of you. So, and then you're shooting what you're seeing. And the camera's just like a tool to convey that, what you're seeing in your mind. Shoot what you see. Shoot what you see.
That's awesome. Let's see. Let's do... what was one of your worst gigs? Do you remember?
One of my worst gigs. I know you sent me these questions beforehand and I read them, but there's a couple, and this is one of them that I was like, I don't know how much I remember. I feel like I should have a better story.
Or just one thing that happened, or it could have been multiple gigs that happened one after another that just taught you a very, very important lesson.
Wait, can you ask me the question again?
What was one of your worst gigs or experiences within the field of art and photography? Working
with shiesty promoters that just think that you are nothing, you're a dime a dozen, that they respect you as much as they respect the dirt that they walk on, and that they just think that they can squeeze everything out of you and pay you minimally and just like work you to the bone. I fucking despise that. Because there's no respect there.
Yeah.
Right? And you're nothing. You're not an artist. And it's so disingenuous, and it really makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
And I hate that shit. A lot of clubs do that. I don't shoot clubs anymore. I haven't shot a club in years. I won't shoot a club anymore because of that.
And that's the lesson that you learned, right? I guess don't shoot clubs.
Yeah, I got real burnt out shooting clubs because I shot clubs when I was in college, and I found a way to make money shooting clubs in college. And when I got out of college, that was kind of something that I just fell into as something that I was familiar with, and then just got super burnt out and just realized this is not the kind of place that's going to foster growth.
Right.
And I wasn't being respected. And in turn, I didn't respect them.
Yeah.
And then it was just kind of like this vicious cycle. And it broke somehow when I said no. I learned the power of no. And honestly, no has allowed me to say yes in a way. Like by saying no to something, you're opening yourself up to more opportunity, and then you can say yes to, and hopefully that's more fruitful.
Yeah, I still have troubles with saying no. Because for me, I'm like, ooh, money, fun, shiny. But I know deep down maybe that job or the gig won't fulfill me in a certain way or be treated a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's a very important lesson to learn.
I just wanted to say that like I have to attribute the fact that I learned the power of no through someone. And it was when I first moved to LA, I got picked up. So I had representation by a woman named Jackie Berry.
Oh yeah, Jackie
Bray.
Bray.
I gotta say her name right if it's being recorded. You're gonna edit this, right?
Yeah.
Jackie Bray.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does she
would be artist?
Yeah.
So
I don't know her personally, but I know of her.
She taught me the power of no.
Wow.
That was really important. Like I was a early 20s photographer in LA trying to shoot nightlife, trying to shoot music. And she saw something in me and picked me up and like sent me on a jettison of a path that'll, still kind of continuing to this day. But like the power of no is what she taught me. So I attribute that lesson to her. I thank her for that.
Jackie with B artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Jackie.
She does a lot. What'd you say?
I just said hi, Jackie.
Hey, Jackie.
She taught me a lot of lessons, and
that
learning no is actually saying yes to what you want it to do. And that's
true.
That holds true for so many more things than just gigs, right?
Right.
Like if your friends are always trying to peer pressuring you into doing something, saying no ultimately lets you say yes to something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you still struggle with your work?
Totally. What do you struggle with, Scott?
There's a couple things. I struggle with execution. With my own projects. That's very hard because I'm not getting paid. And so obviously I have to write a rent check at the end of the month and pay food and gas and everything. So those things are going to take up the majority of my time. So execution really goes out the window. I struggle with a lot of, and I'm working on all of this right now, but I definitely struggle with confidence within my work and like releasing stuff. Because I have a lot of work that I don't show people because it's more personal and I'm afraid of being judged in a certain way.
Do you want to share that stuff?
Eventually, yes.
Eventually.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I've done this podcast, like talking to whoever's going to listen to this is like a huge step out of my comfort zone. And so it's one step at a time for me. Yeah. And then also like I used to I get down on myself when I work with clients. Because I know that they have a specific image in mind or whatever. And sometimes I don't fulfill that image in their mind. And I bring in my own thing and sometimes it doesn't end too well.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all struggles that I think every artist has. Like,
right.
Especially if you're doing something for yourself, like, do you show this to other people? Or I think the question I always have is, how do I show this to other people?
Right.
Because for me, social media is kind of you're just kind of throwing a rock into a stone into a giant pond, right? And, it's just going to be littered with a bunch of stones over time and it's covered in water.
Right.
And it's drowned. So finding a more, like for me, finding a more creative avenue of displaying work or producing work is part of my process. Like I'm experimenting more with printing now and hanging and exhibition and printmaking or making books or other ways of displaying work that I think are more conducive for the work that I'm making, right?
Right.
Instagram has wrapped its arms around photography in such a way where, you know how you can look at a picture now and be like, oh, that's such an Instagram-y photo.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? How has that come to be?
Yeah.
Replication, just replication and imitation and all these things that plague creative people, because everybody wants to have success and everybody wants to be admired and held in such a light, deep down, you know? And so then you get a lot of like imitation and it's disingenuine. So I think for each artist, there should be a way in which they like to present their work. And I'm learning now that I like print.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll learn that you like books, or maybe you're going to learn that you really like to etch things into wood, or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like fucking lithographs or cyanotypes or something like that. Like something crafty with your hands, or maybe it's collage work and you print it out and put it on a wall or something like that.
Yeah.
I think those are very valid concerns. I think everybody feels very similarly.
Right.
So when you have a struggle, just understand that it's not just you.
Yeah.
And judgment is something that's probably felt more from within than it is externally. I think that when you find a group of people that are conducive or like receptive to your art, that you're not going to be judged.
Right.
No matter how crazy or weird it is, like ultimately you're going to find people that are going to enjoy what you're doing or identify with you because you are human and you're connecting with other humans, and
right.
People who view your work should be there to connect with that as well. Yeah. What other struggles do you have?
This turned into a therapy session. With my artwork or just anything in general?
How about, like, why don't you tell me about struggles that you have with your creative process? You said execution was something that you have trouble doing.
Execution, yeah. I'll start something, do it halfway, leave it, move on to the next shiny object.
And how do you think that you could structure your process so that you're completing more projects, even if they were small?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, creating like a daily, even if it's just working on it for 15 minutes a day, like doing that. And no matter what, even if I have to stay up 15 minutes longer past my bedtime or whatever, or wake up 15 minutes earlier to do it. And even if I'm not in it, just sit in front of it and work on it. I feel like that's a good thing. Like the hardest part for me is showing up. And then after that, everything's so much easier. And so let's say like right now I'm working on a script, and like the hardest part is taking that script out of my bag and putting a pencil in my hand. After I do that, everything's so much easier. But it's just, you know, I get the thought and go, let's do that, instead of contemplating on it so long.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that you were talking about that was really interesting to me was like this idea of showing up.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you're like me and you ritualize the creative process in a way, or do you have like a structure for the way that you create, or do you have some kind of methodical process behind inspiration and execution? Like, Scott, why don't you tell me how you go from being inspired to whatever the final form of your photography is, be that a post or a print or a something else?
I go out, I take a photo, I come back, I look at the photos.
Why do you go out?
Good question. To experience something other than myself. So like last year 2 years ago, I went to India by myself for 3 weeks and just traveled around, and I had no itinerary or plan. And I mean, that's the way that I like to work, is just let's take whatever I have at the given moment and make something out of it. And so when I have this plan that I want to execute, let's say this photo series, this whatever it may be, this film, I kind of get afraid that the finalized product or whatever, the finalized work of art, like, is not going to be what I had in my mind. Whether that be better or worse, I'm a little afraid of that disappointment, I guess.
But why would you feel disappointment if, you know, you're going out and do you enjoy what you do when you go out and take pictures?
Yeah.
So where does the enjoyment fall off then?
I wouldn't say like when I go out and take pictures, like there's always a constant sense of enjoyment. I say like when I go out with a plan, there isn't that much enjoyment anymore because there's too much focus on what I want this to be. And so I live my life like this, and maybe it needs to change, but like I like to just go out with no plans in mind and see what I get. And
Zero expectations.
I have high expectations.
You have high expectations.
When I go out and plan.
Right.
But
when you don't, you have zero expectations.
Yeah.
And so you're pleasantly surprised when you get something wonderful.
Exactly.
Right. So how can you learn to honor the process of planning and then loving the work that comes out of it, knowing that maybe it's not exactly what you were looking for, but it is what it's supposed to be? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And I think this podcast is a great stepping stone. Like, I think of these things recently as muscles.
Totally.
And this is something that I just need to train. And so doing this podcast, I had the idea last month. And I said, fuck it, I'm not going to even do research on other podcasts because I just like the vision that I have. And I know my friends aren't on podcasts and need to be on podcasts because they have amazing things to share with the world. And I said, fuck it, and just bought everything and planned out my first podcast. And I've already done 4 in a week.
Dude, that's awesome.
And
good for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
you're showing up, you're executing.
Yeah. And so this is a muscle that needs to be worked. And like, you know, almost every day, no matter what time I go to bed, I wake up at 5:45 in the morning.
Dang, that's early.
Yeah, it's early.
It's early when I wake up, man.
But it's so nice having that extra hour or two. And like small things like that, whether it's making my bed every day, like that will jumpstart my entire day into something better. As if I were to wake up at 9 a.m. Like waking up at 9 is late for me now. Like I don't get how people wake up at 9 or 10 a.m.
Yeah. I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes, man. I gotta say.
I can't. Once the sun's up, I'm up.
Cool. That's just your circadian rhythm, man.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it.
Good for you, though. I mean,
so I guess just training that muscle.
Yeah, you're diving in. You're doing it.
Yeah, I'm diving in.
You're doing the work.
Yeah.
You're definitely doing the legwork.
Yeah. And so I guess just honing in on that and staying more focused with my goals. Because this year I want to do a short film. And so.
Great.
Yeah. But I've been working on the script for 4 or 5 months now, and it's like it should not be taking that long.
Well, what's the hurry? Or why do you need to hurry?
I want to get it into film festivals for next year.
Okay. So you're setting yourself a timeline.
Yeah.
Cool. And have you set benchmarks in between that?
No, which is something that I need to work on with my goals as well.
Yeah.
Because I can't just have this one really big goal of write a script, but no, you know, I need more smaller goals within that big goal.
Totally.
Yeah.
You just got to break things up.
Yeah.
Because it's much harder to digest. I'm going to make a short film, but it's much easier to digest. I'm going to write the first page of the script.
Yeah. It's a lot easier and a lot less daunting.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe that's where your appreciation will come in, is breaking these projects up into more bite-sized pieces or more manageable pieces, and then just knowing that if you can tackle one of these at a time and feel good about it, then the larger whole of all the pieces put together will likely also make you feel good or fulfilled or feel love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I can't wait to see what kind of film you're working on.
Oh, it's going to be weird.
I've no doubt.
Good luck.
Coming from your brain, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'm down. Did you see Roma, by the way?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I just watched his other movie last night, Children of Men. Have you seen it?
I love that film.
Yeah, I just watched it last night.
That film is incredible. I saw that I think it popped up on Netflix recently.
I just saw it on Netflix last night.
Yeah, like, because for a while it wasn't on Netflix.
Yeah.
That's an Emmanuel Lubezki.
Yeah.
He was a cinematographer. He was the cinematographer on the film.
I mean, Damien, the Holy Mountain, is like giving me Mexican directors and
dude,
people to watch, and like just incredible. And so I was Googling like, why are Mexican directors the best? Or like
Something in the Waters, or
I
what
don't
is
get
it?
Or like,
dude, yeah, Damien is incredible for recommendations on film and music.
I will always take his recommendations.
Yeah, he's someone that I really value his aesthetic and style and vision, because he's an artist through and through.
Yeah.
Like, he's somebody that you should be interviewing, not me.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm going to get to him. I'm just afraid.
Nope.
Sorry,
don't be
Damon.
afraid. Don't be afraid.
I'm just afraid that he...
No, find another word, because you're not afraid. Because if you're afraid, then you're not going to do it. So what are you?
Well, no. I'm going to edit this out, by the way. But
I don't care. We're just talking now.
I just don't know if he's somebody who would be up for it.
So what are you afraid of?
Nothing.
Him saying no?
Yeah, I guess.
Then he says no, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't he be up for it? Or if he isn't, convince him. Like, I feel like this would be healthy for Damien.
It would be.
Because he could talk and just share his ideas. I think Damien is an exceptional artist. He has really good ideas.
Yeah.
And he has really good taste.
Yeah.
Like, exceptional taste. I, too, have got a lot of film recommendations from Damien.
I'll go do them every day. Like, I have the day off. What movie should I watch?
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I've actually had similar conversations with Damien. And he's turned me on to some really amazing films.
Yeah.
What was the most recent one that he turned me on to that I saw? Fuck. Damn. Anyway. Trying to think. It was like a sci-fi film or something like that. But he's definitely turned me on to Alfonso Cuarón, and obviously, what's his name? Jodorowsky, Alejandro Jodorowsky. He did The Holy Mountain. He's the director from The Holy Mountain.
Damn, did he do The Revenant as well? No,
that's
Alejandro something as well. I can't pronounce his last name.
Yeah, that's Inarritu.
That was the same cinematographer
also,
who did
Emmanuel Lubezki.
Yeah,
the cinematographer.
And it just, I mean, watching Children of Men last night, like, it felt like I was a person in that movie. It was it looked like it was from first person a little bit.
Totally.
Almost.
Super long takes.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have like a 10-minute single shot.
Yeah.
Like the fight scene is one continuous shot. That movie's super powerful.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that when you watch other Cuarón films that you see these similar themes of fertility coming up.
Yeah,
because like in Roma,
yeah,
she has I don't know, we'll spoil it or not, but like she has the abortion, not the abortion, but the miscarriage, the stillbirth.
And wasn't there? I fell asleep or I was doing laundry in between that movie. But wasn't there also like an earthquake or something that was happening while she was?
Yeah, there was an earthquake
or giving birth.
Yeah, and I don't really know what that earthquake represented. That was something I was thinking about. I was like, that earthquake was, why was it placed there? Like, what was it doing? In the planes too. There's all these plane flyovers.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't know.
My friend Mona was saying that it might have been like transitions. Like the planes represent like transitions in time periods between like the character development.
It was such a beautifully shot movie. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I love the black and white with that.
Do you know that Cuarón was the cinematographer on that as well?
Yes. Yeah.
That's so cool. He had a very Lubezki style, I thought. And he shot it all, I think, on Alexa 65 millimeter or something. It was like
65 millimeter?
I think it was like 65.
Holy crap.
Or maybe they're called the Alexa 65, the Alexa Minis.
Okay. Yeah, Alexa Minis. I think that's digital.
It was digital.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was digital. But it was all this beautiful, like, high dynamic black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
It was
really
so
beautiful.
well done.
All these tones. Yeah. That's a really great place for inspiration, is watching films.
Yeah.
Because, again, like painters, cinematographers are masters of light.
True.
And they have, all not to disenfranchise photographers from being able to be masters of light, because 100% they are. There's, I got my Richard Avedon book behind you, and he's a master of light.
Cool.
But they work with massive crews on putting together the right lighting.
Yeah.
And have you ever seen Lawrence of Arabia?
No.
Just beautiful, wide, sweeping landscape shots of like rolling sand dunes and just like epicness of the desert. And then another person that I'm really influenced by is Deakins, Roger Deakins.
What movies has he done?
Most recently, he did Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that movie, but I saw clips from that, and it looks absolutely
Dude, you gotta see that
insane.
movie. It's really good. He's also done a lot of really famous films like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And my mind is blanking at the moment. I'm so bad with names. But I know that one of the techniques that he really likes to use is unbleached muslin, which is unbleached muslin is like
diffuser cloth,
a diffusing material, cloth that gives a really nice like glowing fill light to a set, which actually I want to get unbleached muslin curtains and take these slats
and it's kind of brown, right? Or
it's like off-white.
Off-white.
Yeah. I don't really have a color. It's not white because it's unbleached, so it's just kind of like natural fiber looking.
Yeah.
But it's kind of it gives like a magical glow. I like it. Yeah.
So kind of coming to an end, because I'm hungry and want to go get food, and I know that you need to go.
Okay.
Really quick, you said 3:20. Or
yeah, I'm gonna go climbing at 3:30, but
okay.
I could be a little late. It's fine.
For somebody looking at your work, gosh. 2 questions. What is one thing that you want somebody to know? If somebody is looking at your work, like the specific purposes behind it, or do you want anybody to know that? Like, it's a bad question. I just came up with that, but
like, what do I want people to feel?
Yeah,
when they look at my work,
exactly.
Well, I want people to feel what I feel when they look at my work,
right?
Which, when I'm in flow state, is a deep sense of empathy and connectedness, oftentimes to nature, but whatever the subject is. Especially when I've got something that I'm so prideful of that I think it's worth a print, then it's important for me to convey those same feelings in such a way that it's not limited to just one group of people or one particular community or one person.
Yeah.
That it's something that can be appreciated and interpreted in many different ways. That's why I use things that are pretty generally applicable, like celestial bodies. That's one thing that humans have always been connected all over the world by, is stars, stars and planets. That's one thing that everybody on Earth has in common. We all have stars and planets in our night sky.
Yeah.
We all have the sun, we all have the moon, we all have stars, we all have planets, right? So that can mean different things to different people in different parts of the world, but it still holds a meaning. And then being able to be immersed in that particular environment. Say, I'm speaking specifically for this location that I was at in Mono Lake a couple days ago for New Year's, or a few days ago for New Year's. And I just remember taking pictures, but also thinking, why am I taking pictures? Like I was going nuts because the sunset was so incredible, and just thinking like, okay, well, why am I taking pictures? And then I just like decided to sit and just look at the mountains and think. And I was with my buddy James Fish, and we discussed this idea of nobility. And like the act of photography is a noble act, and that you're this liaison between like this beautiful scene or this wonderful place or this beautiful, wonderful person and the viewer or the person who is there admiring, or, and it's a noble act to go out and want to convey that feeling or emotion. It's not always easy, as we know, but I think it's noble and admirable. Yeah. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. But that was really good. And then also, like, one thing that people starting out in this field, or people who even admire your work, like, what's one or a couple words of advice that you would give to them?
Don't let fear rule your life, and find ways of going through life with positivity. I like to use the word love, like dictating my life from a place of love rather than from a place of fear. But for other people, it might be, I want to come from a place of curiosity or a place of courage. And I think it's important just to admonish fear, because that'll only hold you back. It's certainly important to sit with it and understand it and recognize it, but don't let it rule you. I'm still learning, dude. Yeah. I'm still in my 20s. Like, I'm still learning. We're all still learning. Like, we're contemporaries of one another. We're peers. Like, this is all a community, and collaboration, I think, is a really amazing thing, and something that I really appreciate about the Bay Area and really admire about my friends, that there's such a willingness to be able to collaborate and share and be stronger because of community, rather than to just isolate yourself and try to hoard knowledge and, not be willing to put yourself out there. It's scary sometimes, but I mean, like you said, like the fear of rejection is real, but don't let it rule your life.
Wise words. Damn.
I don't know, man. Just trying to give you things that I've been thinking about, and that, like, conclusions that I've made, and not to say they're full conclusions, but just like ideas that I think about now, and especially during this transitional period in a new place and in a new environment. Like, I want to be able to try to be the strongest person that I can be, and I want to try to be the best person I can be, and the most admirable and the most honest and truthful. And these are lessons that I've learned hard ways. And if I can impart any part of that to other people, to hopefully glean some kind of tidbit of knowledge that helps them along their way, then I've done my job as a steward for my space in the community that I hold. Yeah. Just got to pass it on, man. If you hold on to it, you're just going to burn yourself. Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato.
Well, thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we should go shoot sometime.
Yeah.
I've been trying to find interesting compositions that I can work on in the city. Like, this idea of like finding the best time of day or the time of month. Like, I want to try to apply that to Oakland, or I want to try to apply that to San Francisco as well. And just like find spaces that I think look nice, and finding the right time of day or month to shoot them. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're down, we should go shooting.
Yeah. I'm always down. My neighborhood, and there's a lookout point from my neighborhood. I don't know what you're looking for, but it just looks over all of the inner Sunset and the Richmond and Golden Gate Park. And it's just gorgeous there sometimes. And then you get the Marin Headlands and the Golden Gate Bridge. So,
where do you live again?
It's called Golden Gate Heights. It's inner Sunset and West Portal.
Okay.
It's like mosaic tiled steps up to Lookout Point.
Oh,
You know where
nice.
that is? No.
Not super familiar.
Okay. Yeah, it's west of Twin Peaks, the peak right next to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know about where you are then.
Yeah. It's nice.
Is
Anyways.
that by Corona Heights?
I don't know where Corona Heights is, right below Twin Peaks.
I think so.
Like kind of Coal Valley. I don't know.
Something like that.
Anyways, I'll show you afterwards or another time. I want to thank you. Your work's absolutely inspiring. And it's super simple stuff, but it's just so well done. And no matter what you shoot, there's always a feeling behind it. And just want to let you know that is conveyed if you are trying to convey that, which I believe that you did say that you want to convey a feeling.
Thank you. Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, of course. And you have pictures all over your house, which is amazing. I need to start printing out my work, but
Definitely.
and
Look, I
it's-
just got that printer.
oh, nice. What?
Yeah.
Oh, sick.
I haven't even set it up.
100. Awesome. Just keep on going. Like, I don't know. Like your work is so solid. Like,
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
whatever you're doing it right. So keep on going.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I encourage you as well. You just keep shooting, man.
Thank you.
Keep experimenting.
Yeah, I will. Check him out on Instagram at Sky Greene, SKYGREENE.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then he also runs Candy Mountain Collective.
Yep. Candy Mountain Collective is a company I started.
Yeah.
That's largely photography for me, but we also collaborate with other photographers from time to time. And we do video projects as well. And that's, candymountaincollective.com. And we're also on Instagram at
Awesome.
Candy Mountain Collective.
Yeah,
I know
it's
it's a really long name.
Yeah. But it's really nice. Go check them out. And then as well, you sell prints.
Yep. I have a print store online. That's also found at my website, skygreene.com.
Okay. Check it out. Thank you for coming on, taking a risk. Even though it's my 4th episode, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
I hope you have a great time exploring, speaking with other artists, and I hope you get to learn something as well.
Yeah. Definitely am already.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Thanks, Scott.